Hi there, this is Brett Lonsdale, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the properties inside of Social Squared, and we'll explore those properties both inside of SharePoint and inside of Microsoft Teams, and you're going to find that they're the same, but just going to show you how to access them in both environments. So in fact, let's just first of all cover that off. So what I want to do first of all is just show you inside of SharePoint. So of course, in the top right hand corner, we have the edit button. So when Social Squared is placed on a page inside of SharePoint, we can click onto edit, and that allows me to select the web part. So we're going to just click onto the web part somewhere so it gets highlighted with the bold border. And we've got the pencil icon here that says edit web part. And as we click onto that, we start to see all of the different properties for Social Squared. And what you'll see right at the very top is the title. So this is the title here. You may change that. We'll come to that in just a moment. Let me just switch across to Microsoft Teams to show you how we could access those properties from the Teams environment. So inside of Microsoft Teams, we can hit the drop down on the tab where Social Squared is, and we can choose settings in there, and that has brought up the same panel that you see inside of SharePoint. So it doesn't really matter which one we go to. I'm just going to cover off some in each. So first of all, we just want to show you here the title. So that literally is just going to change the title here. So we might have the supermarket product discussions as our title. So you can see how that's taken effect already before we even apply the changes inside the property. Now the next one, in fact, let me just cover this off in Teams as well. So inside of Teams, this is an independent setting to what you saw inside of SharePoint, which goes for all of the properties here. So if I do the same here, we'll say the supermarket discussions, and let's just leave it at that. You can see how that's taken place, but there's one extra thing that we can do inside of Teams, which is why I wanted to show you that in here, is you may want to change the tab name inside of Microsoft Teams. So if I come down to the rename option on the tab itself, and in here we could have discussion board. It's a good idea to keep this short because the tab only has a certain width before it starts to wrap the text. So you can see we've got discussion board in here. Now we're going to see a warning once this reloads. There's the warning. So it says the channel tabs where the forum has been added are discussion board. And basically what we need to do is go through and fix this warning using one of the web part properties. And we can do that by coming down to settings again. And as we scroll nearly all the way down, you're going to see the Social Squared Forum Microsoft Teams tab display name, and that needs to match. And the reason why that needs to match is so that when we form the URL to the tab inside of Social Squared, we need to know what that tab is called. So that's where we set that property there. And once we've done so, the error, we can close that and it won't reappear once we refresh the page. So that's something that's very specific to the Microsoft Teams interface if you're renaming that tab. Okay, so we'll jump back to SharePoint again just to make things fair. And in here, you'll also notice that we've got the forum groups section. So under the forum group section, we can turn on or turn off the collapsible forum groups. And quite simply, notice how I can expand collapse these. If you don't want to expand collapse them, switch it off. And you won't be able to. So that's the option there. You've also got here the forum groups that you're going to display. And again, the same thing resides here inside of Teams. So which forum groups are you going to display? It has a slightly different meaning, whether you're in the Teams environment versus the SharePoint environment. If I'm in the SharePoint environment, let's just republish this page and I'll show you exactly what that does. I could add a page that is going to be specific to groceries inside this site. So what I can do is just add a page here, and we'll go with a blank page and we'll call this groceries discussions. And again, I'm going to add the Social Squared web part. and we're going to come into the settings, and I'm going to tell it to only show the groceries forum group on that page. And that's what that feature does. So we can access all of the forum groups on the other page. On this particular page, we're just going to see groceries, and that's it. If we jump across to Teams, how you can use that here is not in a separate tab, but actually in a different channel. So if we scroll all the way down to our grocery store, and we'll add a channel, and we'll call that channel electronics. So we've added the electronics channel, and again I could add social squared. So that is going to come in with all of the forum groups again, just like it did on the SharePoint page. And what I can do is once again just tell it which forum group or groups I want to display on this channel. So this is a nice feature because on the general channel we're going to see all of the forum groups, but when we specifically go to the electronics channel, we're only going to see the electronics forums, and therefore we can really focus on those specific forums. Okay, so let's just go back down to our pages here inside of SharePoint. So we'll go to the product discussions page. Okay, and again we'll edit, go back into the property pane. Okay, so we now have notifications. And clearly some of these are specific to Teams and so on. So basically, if you are using the Teams environment for Social Squared, you can turn on email notifications, and you can also turn on channel notifications. So these are on or off. So this is the notifications when you are subscribed to a forum or to a topic. And you can also enable the edit post notification as well. So if somebody comes in and makes a modification to one of the posts, we can also receive notification on that. So that's just a feature that you can turn on or turn off. And those settings are going to be the same when we're inside the Teams environment. Next one is paging. So here we have 50 topics per page. So that's the default. When I go into a forum, in here we can see 50 topics. Before we paginate, we choose the next page to see the next 50 topics, and so on. And you've got the same thing with the post. So that is once you're inside a topic and there's replies to that topic, we can see 20 replies per page. So if you want to increase or decrease that, that's really a personal preference. You can do so using those properties there. Now we also have likes and other emojis, and for that we're going to jump into this post here. So inside this post, you'll notice that I can hit this option here, the ellipsis, and I can choose a like and a laughing face and a shocked face and so on. Sometimes you may not want this at all, in which case you can turn that feature off. In fact, sorry, turn both features off. There we go. And it's disappeared. You don't even see the ellipsis anymore. If we want just likes, we can turn that on and you get just likes. If you want the other emojis, you can have the other emojis and likes if you want to. Okay, so that's just the sort of personal preference on whether you want that inside this instance of Social Squared. So next we have tagging. So the tags are used to describe the post. There's more on this inside the end user content as well. But just to show you, if I was to reply to a topic or create a new topic, I can tag it. And here is some freestyle tagging. So in here I could just tag this with the word steak and maybe ribeye and so on. So we can describe it, even though that is not mentioned inside the post, we could tag it with any words that I like, and it'll also recommend tags to us as well that have already been used. Now, if you want to really enforce the tags that people are using, if I just delete these ones here, what I can turn on is the term store for tagging instead, and then I can actually choose the term store I want to use. So there's different term stores in here. So there's some demo terms that I'm going to just select. And once I've done that, you'll notice that the tag feature here does allow me to tag but I have to actually select one of the tags from the term store, and that way we get some consistency with the tags that people are using, but you don't get as much freedom, and that's a trade-off. So whichever you prefer to be the case in your Social Squared instance. So underneath that one, we also have file attachments. So attachments are currently on, which means I can click attach files. And you'll notice in here that I'm allowing JPEGs, PNGs, GIFs, PDFs, and MP4s, which is listed here. So you can specify which file types you want to allow people to use. You can also set a maximum upload size as well. And you can either control this attachment to be a list item attachment in the back end. So if you think of the way Social Squared works, you create a topic, and that is a list item inside the posts list. So an attachment to that post becomes a list item attachment. If you want to, you can specify a document library instead, and the attachment will go into a document library which you can navigate to and see all of those different attachments, and that gives you a bit more freedom around things like document management, also being able to move those files and that sort of thing if you wanted to. Okay, so again, same options inside of Teams too. The next feature here is badges. So badges are awarded, and if we just cancel out this one, you can see I've got a badge so far, and that is based on the number of points that I have. So you get points as a user if you you get posts as a user if you provide feedback to somebody by marking their post as answered, by replying to people, and also those people will receive points if you vote for one of their posts as well. So each of those are awarding points basically. So you can specify the thresholds when each badge gets awarded. So the first one is anything between 1 and 5 points is a badge, anything between 5 and 10 points is 2 badges, and so on, but you can change that to again suit your requirements. And we can also select the badge that we want to use. So you'll see in here there's different types of badges. Of course, there's some that aren't really relevant as badges, some are. So if you want to award balloons for good work, you can, or birthday cakes. There's also beer or stars, that sort of thing. You can go through and choose which badge you want to use. All right, and underneath that we have voting. So you can enable or disable voting. Here is the voting, so you can vote up or vote down somebody else's post. So I would be able to do that because I am not demo user 6, so I can vote up. That way that person would also get a point. I could vote down and then they'd be deducted points. So you can disable the down voting for that reason if you want to, keep it all on a positive note, so you can see the down vote has gone, or you can just switch off voting altogether if you like. So they're just some refinements that you have inside that instance of Social Squared. So as we navigate back, you'll notice here I've got columns like topics and posts and the last post, etc. These are aligning with those columns. So you can turn on or turn off those columns from the view if you don't want to see them. One reason for doing that is maybe your web part page doesn't have as much space as I have. So if you split your columns, say 1/3, 2/3 or something like that, then you could go through and specify less columns to display. Next feature is about the content that gets displayed here inside of Social Squared. You can just leave it on all content. So if it's Social Squared content that's been created inside this site, it's going to display. Or I can display a certain period of content. So I could show the last month's content, the last year, etc. Of content, or from a specified date, which could be the start of a semester or something like that if you're in a school environment. That way the content still exists inside the back-end SharePoint lists, but it's just not displayed inside the web part, which keeps the web part looking fresh, especially if it's a well-used instance of Social Squared. If you're getting lots of engagement and you want to keep things very current, you may decide that you want to have a rolling date for the content that is displayed. Underneath that, we have a few more refinements. So this is mostly to do with the views that we've got over on the left-hand side. So we've got things like the popular topics view. This will show 5 popular topics. So you can increase or decrease that. We then have recent activities. So if it's in the last 7 days, it shows under recent activities. You could bring that down to a day or 2 days if you want. We also have active users, which is the most active users in the last 30 days. So again, you could refine that option. We also have a rich text editor. Changing these options here will change the rich text editor when I add a new topic. So if I just add a new topic here, this is a classic rich text editor. If I was to change to inline, as the warning says here, you're not going to see any changes until I refresh the page. So I'm just going to go through and do that. Okay, and we'll add a new topic again. And so now my rich text editor appears only when I start typing and I'm selecting the rich text area. And the other option that you have for that one is a balloon. So that will only appear, the rich text editor will only appear when you highlight text. So this next one is the admin role. Now, basically the default is if you are the site owner, you're going to get the full admin rights. You can create forum groups, you can create forums, etc. Maybe you created the site, but you don't want to administrate this. So what you can do is specify a group, such as the site's owners group, and that owners group will basically have admin rights over Social Squared, and you can add and remove the people to that owners group in order to be able to control Social Squared. We also have an alternate content source in here. So if I want to ignore the lists that are inside this site as Social Squared content, and instead I want content to come from a different Social Squared instance in a different site, I can do that. So I have this well-being example here. I can grab the site URL, copy that, come back and paste in the URL to that site as my alternate content source. And what you'll see is, again, once we refresh the page, is we've now got completely different forum groups and different topics and so on, because they are actually coming from a different SharePoint site. Okay, so that's how we can have forums span multiple sites by using an alternate content source. Okay, so I'm just going to remove that, and again, once I refresh this page in a moment, that'll put it back to how it was. This option we've seen right at the very beginning of this video. This is just Teams specific. If you rename the tab inside of Teams, you must rename it here. We have a refresh interval, so this is where 0 is the default. You have to refresh the page. If you want to check for new content, you can have that automatically refresh for content by specifying a number of seconds as the interval. There is also a sidebar option instead of this view menu. So if I show that sidebar, you can see that all of those options are down on the left-hand side. You kind of need to know what each of those icons mean. There's less explanation as to what you get when you do have the view menu displayed. There is also the enable live persona card. So you'll notice here when I hover over someone, I get their persona card. We can have a look at the information about them. You can turn that off if you want to. And finally, you can enable or disable anonymous posting. So at the moment we have anonymous posting on, which means I can add a new topic and I can post anonymously. So taking that option off takes the post anonymous option out as well. Okay, so they are the properties for Social Squared. And if you have any questions about any of these, please feel free to reach out to our tech support team and they'll be happy to answer you. Many thanks. Bye.